Okay, Bob Jackson here. I'm educational liaison with the PRISM project here at Rose-Hulman. Some of you I've talked to through email or communicated through email, and some of you folks I've seen in person, actually been at your schools. But we've got this focus group going now, and have this page made for you guys, which I'm hoping to get people using and collaborating a little bit through this Moodle course. Hopefully it can help each other do some things that you'd like to learn to do on the Moodle LMS. Okay, anyway, this is a course, and most of you have seen it, been on here. What I want to do here is kind of model and show that we can actually do some video lessons for each other. Okay, I'd like it for it to be not just me, but see some of you guys, because some of you folks have, there's some of you folks, particularly in this group, that have been using Moodle by far longer than I've even been around. Okay, I've been with the program since 2013, and I've learned everything I know about Moodle from that point. But what differentiates me from you is the fact that I'm sitting here in an office at Rose-Hulman, and I'm no longer teaching a high school class using Moodle actually with students. And that's when I realize, and I totally know that's when you really realize what works and what does not work, is when you put the stuff out to the students. Okay. Okay, so anyway, this video lesson, what I'm wanting to actually be on is on, some of you are saying you have interest in learning how to do some of the different types of questions on quizzes. And what I want to do on this video lesson is show you how to set up calculated simple questions. Okay, so on the course here, if you come all the way down to the bottom of the course, have assessment question types. If you open that up, then you will see I've actually populated it with some sample quizzes that have some of the different types of questions in them. And now then, each one of us on this focus group course have a teacher role. So that means you're going to be able to go into the setup of these questions and see how to do them yourself after I get you shown and what I've got here. Okay, and some of you, like I say, probably know this better than I do. Okay, the one I'm wanting to work with today is the calculated simple questions. So I'm going into this. Okay, I'm going to go to, yours probably won't say continue last preview. It'll just give you the preview button. Okay, it looks like I was on question 6, and I just, well, use it as my example. Okay, I've put y'all in as teacher roles on the course, and this is one of the main reasons why, is you can go to my questions here, and you can go to edit question and see how the problems are all set up. Okay, and I'm going to talk you through these. Okay, this is a calculated simple question. Okay, you can also do calculated questions. I don't like them near as well. One thing, there's a little bit more work to them, and they don't generate the questions beforehand. Okay, and that's what I'll show you when I get into these. So on the calculated simple, on the last part of the setup, you can actually have it generate and display all the random questions generated for the problem. And I like that because as a teacher, I can go down through and see that my math formula that I put in for the problem is working right on all the problems. Okay, and I'll show you that when I get into it. Okay, but this is a question. This was a chemistry class question, and I don't know that all the questions I have on this are all chemistry class, but this one is. Okay, and this was a dimensional analysis, a unit conversions type question, were used typically at the front part of the year. Okay, but one of the numbers in this problem is put in as a wild card. Okay, and on this one, it is this number right here. Okay, every time this question comes up to students in the class, a different number is going to be put in here. Okay, now the range of numbers that put in there is what you've got to set. And they need to be appropriate range, and you're the teacher, you know the problems that you're doing. You got to realize what range of numbers to put in there. Like with this being a pumping gallons a minute, you probably want that range up like 1,500 to 1,800 gallons a minute, since we're talking 40,000 barrels of oil being pumped. Otherwise, you get answers that are out of this world and not practical. Okay, so you do have to be familiar with your numbers on your problems to make sure you know the ranges to set your numbers. Okay, so now then, if you go to edit questions, that takes you into where you're actually setting up the question. Okay, I've copied and pasted this question in here from some source. Okay, and then taken one of my numbers, and that's this one, my rate number for gallons a minute. Okay, and I've made it a wild card in this problem. And what I mean by the wild card is that it's going to randomly select different numbers to put in this each time this question is opened on a new attempt. Okay, it can be a new attempt by the same student if you give multiple tries, or it could be different students. So if you have a classroom of students taking the test all at the same time, each student in the classroom should be getting a different number pulled up and put into this position on this problem. Okay, so the way you symbolize it, you have to use the curly brackets, and you're going to use a letter to stand for your variable. Okay, and then when you come down to where you set up your answer, you're going to put your mathematical formula. Now, it's absolutely imperative that you put the mathematical formula in correctly and know what characters to use. Like on this, and I'm just doing multiplication and division. So you got to make sure you're familiar with your characters to use for those. The asterisk for the times, and the slash sign for the divided. Okay, but then you put your variable in to where your number would go in this problem. Okay, and it must appear exactly here as it does here. Okay, that's absolutely imperative. Okay, you can set a tolerance range for your answer. Okay, if you want to give them a little bit of leeway, typically I go like 2 decimal places here. Okay, and you can do units on these. Okay, but you have to be careful with those, because if the students don't write the units just the way you put them here, they are going to get marked down on it. Okay, and you can give a point value for what you want. Like if it's a 5-point problem and you give a point for the unit, then you can. But they're going to have the units that you have stated here and written just like you've got, or typed in just the way you've got it. So if you accept ARS, you're going to have to HRS, you're going to have it there. Okay, because if they put HRS and you have hours, then it's going to get them for a point. Okay, so you do have to be careful with using units or not use them at all. Okay, now then, typically after you've set the problem up the first time, you're going to click on this and find the wild card. That way it goes through and it for your generator is going to find that wild card. Okay, now then, this is the most important part to do on these. Okay, you're going to come to the wildcard parameters. Okay, now then, this is automatically populated with 1 and a 10. Okay, now then on this one, with the problem that I'm dealing with, I'm pumping 40,000 barrels of oil, so these numbers have to be pretty big or else I'm going to get an impractical answer. So I'd go a range on this in like 1,500 to like 1,800. Okay, now then that'll change with the problems that you're doing. Okay, if you want to select decimal places, you can. So if you're just going to go a number range like 1 to 10, That's not a very big range, but you can increase that range if you put decimals on the numbers. Okay, I don't think I want any decimals on my numbers on these. Okay, but you can. Okay, and then you go to your generate and your display. This is going to generate where it generates them beforehand, before a student takes it. Whereas if you do a calculated type problem rather than calculated simple, the calculated generates the questions for the students as they're taking the test. So you never see them, get a chance to see them beforehand. On these calculated simple, you're going to be able to see them beforehand. So I always go at least generate as many students as you have, but I typically go like 50 because I used to have like 40 total Chem 1 students. I'd just make 50 different questions. Okay, so click on generate. Okay, now I'm not going to physically see anything, but it generated the questions. And then I have the display button here. I can display all of those for me to look through and see that my formula's working correctly and getting right answers before it being launched to students. Okay, so, and that's where the display, you don't see anything unless you hit wildcard values here, and then it's showing you here. Okay, there's all the random questions that can be put out there to students. Okay, and you can check and make sure that this math is right. It looks like these are right because it should be like 17, 18 hours. Okay, and then you want to be sure and come all the way down to the bottom and click on Save Changes. Okay, and that's a calculated simple type question, and you can play around with them and make sure that it works. But I like that one, and it's a way, even if you want to make one as like an exit problem for the end of the day where you've taught them how to do problems, you make up one problem and every kid in the class will get a different one if you're doing it as like an exit type exercise for the end of the class period, or maybe even right at the beginning of a class period. Okay, thank you. Hope this helps you.